The designer chair scraped against the polished restaurant floor as my stepson Chase shoved me aside with enough force to send me stumbling backward. 23 pairs of eyes watched as I caught myself against the wall, my dress shirt wrinkled, my dignity scattered across the marble tiles like broken Christmas ornaments. "This seat belongs to my dad," Chase announced loudly, his voice carrying across the upscale dining room where our extended family had gathered for Christmas dinner. "Get out!" The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I straightened my jacket, brushed off the imaginary dust, and looked around the table at faces I'd known for 17 years. Some were smirking, others studied their wine glasses with sudden fascination. My wife Monica sat frozen, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her champagne flute like a lifeline. "Frank, don't make a scene," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the restaurant's soft jazz music. I nodded slowly, the way I'd learned to do over the years when keeping the peace seemed more important than keeping my self-respect. Chase Morgan, 28 years old and still acting like the entitled teenager I'd tried to help raise, settled into my chair with a satisfied grin. His 8-year-old son Eli looked confused, glancing between his father and me with worried eyes. "It's okay, buddy," I told Eli quietly, forcing a smile for the child's sake. "Grandpa Frank will just sit over here." But there was no other chair. The table had been perfectly arranged for exactly 23 people, and now I stood like an unwanted guest at my own family's celebration. The irony wasn't lost on me. After 17 years of marriage to Monica, after helping pay for Chase's college education, after being there for every birthday and graduation, I was still just the stepfather, the outsider, the man who could be pushed aside whenever it suited them. "I'll just go to the restroom," I announced to no one in particular. "Give you all a chance to enjoy your dinner." As I walked away, I heard Chase's voice rise above the murmur of resumed conversation. "Finally, some peace and quiet. Maybe now we can have a real family dinner." The laughter that followed his comment felt like needles under my skin. The restaurant's bathroom was mercifully empty. I stood at the sink, staring at my reflection in the ornate mirror. At 59, I still looked younger than my years, the benefit of a lifetime of careful living and regular exercise. My graying hair was neatly combed, my blue eyes clear behind wire-rimmed glasses. I looked like exactly what I was, a retired civil engineer who'd spent his career building bridges and solving problems with quiet precision. But right now, I felt like a fool. "Excuse me, sir? Are you all right?" I turned to find a woman in her early 40s standing in the doorway. She wore the professional attire of restaurant management, her name tag reading Priya Mehta, Manager. "I'm fine, thank you," I replied automatically. "I saw what happened out there," she said, stepping closer and lowering her voice. "That was completely inappropriate. I want you to know that we have security cameras in the dining room, and if you need any kind of documentation of the incident—" She let the sentence hang in the air, but her meaning was clear. Someone had witnessed Chase's behavior, and more importantly, someone had it recorded. "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by her concern. "I appreciate that. Really." "Here's my card," she said, pressing a small piece of cardstock into my hand. "If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call." I pocketed the card and returned to the dining room, where the conversation flowed around me like water around a stone. Chase held court from my chair, regaling the table with stories about his latest business ventures. Monica laughed at all the right moments, playing the proud mother to perfection. I found an empty chair at the far end of the table, between Monica's elderly aunt and a cousin I barely knew. From this vantage point, I could observe the family dynamics with the same analytical eye I'd once used to assess structural problems in bridge construction. What I saw wasn't pretty. Chase dominated every conversation, his voice growing louder with each glass of wine. Monica hung on his every word, occasionally shooting warning glances in my direction whenever I tried to contribute to the discussion. The other family members seemed to exist in orbit around Chase's magnetic personality, drawn to his charisma and repelled by any suggestion that his behavior might be inappropriate. It was a pattern I'd seen before, but never with such clarity. When dinner finally ended, the family dispersed with promises to do this again soon. Chase made a point of shaking hands with everyone except me. As he passed my chair, he leaned down and whispered, "Thanks for not making a scene, Frank. I knew you'd understand your place eventually." The drive home was silent. Monica stared out the passenger window while I navigated the dark suburban streets. Our house, the house I'd bought before our marriage and had been paying for ever since, sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, its windows dark and unwelcoming. "You're being too sensitive," Monica said as we pulled into the garage. "Chase was just having a little fun. You know how he gets when he's had a few drinks." "He pushed me, Monica, in front of the entire family. He barely touched you. You're making it sound like he attacked you or something." I turned off the engine and sat in the darkness for a moment, listening to the tick of cooling metal. "How long has this been going on?" "What do you mean?" "The disrespect, the casual cruelty. How long have you and Chase been treating me like I don't matter?" Monica's silence was answer enough. Inside the house, I went to my study while Monica headed upstairs to bed. The room was my sanctuary, filled with engineering books and the awards I'd earned during my 30-year career. I sat at my desk and pulled out a yellow legal pad, the same kind I'd used to document structural problems and plan solutions for complex projects. At the top of the page I wrote, "December 25th, Christmas dinner incident." Below that, I began documenting everything I could remember. The time Chase arrived at the restaurant, the way he and Monica had whispered together before dinner, the calculated nature of his humiliation, the family's reaction, Priya's offer of security footage. My phone buzzed with a text message from Arthur, Monica's brother-in-law. Art had been at dinner, sitting close enough to see everything but far enough away to avoid getting involved. "Saw what happened tonight. You okay?" I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking. This isn't the first time, is it?" The question hung on my phone screen like an accusation. Art was right, of course. Tonight hadn't been an isolated incident. It was just the most public one. I spent the next hour writing down every instance I could remember of Chase's disrespect, Monica's enabling, and the family's willingness to look the other way. The list was longer than I'd expected. Much longer. When I finally went upstairs, Monica was already in bed, her phone glowing in the darkness as she scrolled through social media. She didn't look up when I entered the room. "Monica," I said quietly, "I'm tired, Frank. Can we not do this tonight? I'm not trying to start a fight. I just want to understand why you let him treat me that way." She set down her phone and turned to face me, her expression hard in the dim light. "Chase has been through a lot, okay? His father left when he was young. He struggled to find his place in the world. Sometimes he acts out, but it's not personal. It felt pretty personal when he shoved me in front of 23 people. You're being dramatic. He was just claiming his father's chair. It's symbolic, Frank. You wouldn't understand." The words hit me like a physical blow. After 17 years of marriage, after raising her son as my own, after building a life together, I was still an outsider who wouldn't understand. I changed into my pajamas and lay down on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. Monica's breathing eventually deepened into sleep, but I remained awake, my mind racing with thoughts I'd been suppressing for years. Sometime around 3 a.m, my phone buzzed with a notification. Chase had posted a photo from dinner on social media, a group shot of the family around the table, everyone smiling and raising their glasses. I had been carefully cropped out of the image. The caption read, "Family wins again. Blessed for real family. Core Christmas, 2023. I screenshotted the post and added it to my growing file of evidence. Because that's what this had become. Not a family misunderstanding or a holiday mishap, but a pattern of behavior that needed to be documented. As dawn broke through our bedroom curtains, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done being the family doormat. Done accepting disrespect in the name of keeping the peace. Done pretending that love meant letting people walk all over you. Chase thought he'd won something by pushing me out of that chair. But if he thought that was the end of the story, he was wrong. Dead wrong. I had spent my entire career solving problems that seemed impossible, building structures that could withstand any storm. Now it was time to apply those same skills to my personal life. The game was about to change, and Chase Morgan had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Monica left early for her yoga class without saying goodbye. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and laptop researching Priya's restaurant. The Meridian was a high-end establishment with excellent reviews and, according to their website, state-of-the-art security systems to ensure our guests' safety and privacy. Perfect. I found the contact form on their website and composed a careful message to Priya, thanking her for her kindness the night before and mentioning that I might need that security footage for insurance purposes. It was vague enough to avoid seeming litigious, but clear enough to convey my intent. My phone rang as I was finishing my second cup of coffee. Art's name appeared on the screen. "Want to grab coffee?" he asked without preamble. "I think we should talk." We met at a small cafe downtown, far from our usual neighborhood haunts. Art looked tired, his usually neat appearance slightly rumpled. At 64, he was 5 years older than me and had been married to Monica's sister Linda for 30 years. He'd seen the family dynamics from the inside for longer than anyone. "I've been thinking about last night," he said, settling into the booth across from me with his black coffee. "What Chase did was way over the line. Monica thinks I'm overreacting. Monica thinks a lot of things that don't match reality." Art's voice was careful, but there was an edge to it. "Can I ask you something? How much money have you given Chase over the years?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "College tuition, car payments, rent money, business loans that never got repaid. How much?" I did the mental math, and the number made my stomach clench. Too much. Try $60,000 minimum. Linda keeps track of these things. She's been watching Monica pay Chase's credit card bills for months. The kid's in debt up to his eyeballs, and your wife is enabling it. This was news to me. Monica handled most of our day-to-day finances while I managed the investments and retirement accounts. I knew she helped Chase occasionally, but I hadn't realized the extent of it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because someone needs to. And because what happened last night wasn't just about a chair. It was about power. Chase is establishing dominance, and Monica is helping him do it." Art pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages. "Look at this. Text from Linda this morning." He showed me the screen. Linda had written, "Monica called early, upset about Frank stirring up drama. Says she's worried he's going to cause problems for Chase." "Problems for Chase?" I repeated. "He's the one who assaulted me in public." "That's what I said. But Monica's already rewriting history. By her version, you overreacted to harmless family teasing." I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. This was how it always worked. Chase would act out, I would object, and somehow I became the problem. Monica was a master at this particular form of manipulation. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Priya had responded to my message, and her reply was more supportive than I'd expected. "Mr. Rivers, I'm so sorry about what happened at your family dinner. I've been in the hospitality business for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite so inappropriate. If you need a copy of the security footage, I'd be happy to provide it. The incident was clearly captured by our dining room cameras. Please let me know how I can help." I showed the message to Art, whose eyebrows rose. "She's offering evidence. That's not nothing." Evidence of what? That my stepson is a bully? I already knew that. Evidence that it was premeditated, Art said quietly. I was sitting close enough to hear Monica and Chase whispering before dinner. They were planning something. I thought it was a surprise for someone's birthday, but now you think they planned the humiliation. I think they've been planning a lot of things. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee and watching the morning crowd of commuters and students flow past the cafe windows. Finally, Art spoke again. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. Good, because Linda and I are tired of watching them treat you like garbage. You deserve better, Frank. After Art left, I drove to my old engineering firm. I'd retired 2 years earlier but maintained friendships with several former colleagues. Gina Tran, the HR director, had always been someone I could trust with sensitive matters. Gina's office was on the 3rd floor of the glass and steel building where I'd spent the last decade of my career. She greeted me with genuine warmth and ushered me into her office, closing the door behind us. Frank, what brings you by? Please don't tell me you're bored in retirement and want your old job back. Nothing like that, I assured her. I actually wanted to ask you about something. Have you had any recent employment verification requests for Chase Morgan? Gina's expression shifted from friendly to puzzled. Chase? Your stepson? That's odd that you'd ask. We actually got a call about him just last week, someone checking on his employment history with us. What did you tell them? The truth. That he's never worked here. Why would someone think he had? I felt pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Has this happened before? A few times over the past year. Always the same thing. Someone calling to verify Chase Morgan's position in our engineering department. I assumed it was some kind of mistake or identity confusion. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if Chase has been telling people he works here? Gina's expression darkened. That would be fraud, using our company name and your reputation to misrepresent his credentials. Frank, that's serious. Could you document those calls? The dates, the companies that called, what exactly they were told? Of course. But can I ask why you need this information? I gave her a brief summary of the previous night's events and my growing suspicions about Chase's behavior. Gina listened without interruption, her HR training evident in how she absorbed the information. I'll pull together everything we have, she said when I finished. And Frank, if he's been using our company name fraudulently, we need to know about it. This could affect our reputation and potentially create legal liability. I understand. I just want to know the truth. The truth is what we'll find. Give me a day or two to pull the records. I drove home feeling like I was finally taking action instead of just absorbing punishment. Monica's car was in the driveway, which meant she was back from yoga. I found her in the kitchen, aggressively chopping vegetables for what looked like an elaborate dinner. Where have you been? She asked without looking up. Coffee with Art, then stopped by the office to see some old colleagues. I hope you weren't spreading gossip about last night. The knife in her hand made sharp, rhythmic sounds against the cutting board. Chop, chop, chop. I wasn't spreading gossip. I was talking to friends who care about me. Friends who will just stir up trouble, you mean? Art never liked Chase. He's always looking for reasons to criticize him. Maybe Art has good reasons to be critical. Monica finally looked up, her eyes flashing with anger. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm starting to pay attention to things I've been ignoring for too long. Like what? Like how much money you've been giving Chase. Like how he treats me in public. Like how you always take his side no matter what he does. The chopping stopped. Monica set down the knife and turned to face me fully. Chase is my son, Frank. My son. He comes first. He will always come first. If you can't accept that, then maybe we have bigger problems than I thought. I never asked to come before your son. I just asked to be treated with basic respect. You're being ridiculous. One little incident at dinner and you're acting like it's the end of the world. One little incident? Monica. He pushed me. in front of our entire family, and instead of defending me or even acknowledging that it was wrong, you're making excuses for him. I'm protecting my family. I thought I was your family too." The silence that followed was deafening. Monica picked up the knife and resumed chopping, each cut more violent than the last. "Dinner will be ready at 6, she said without looking at me. "Try not to cause any drama." I went to my study and closed the door, feeling like a stranger in my own home. My phone had 2 new messages. The first was from Priya, asking when I'd like to pick up the security footage. The second was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Rivers, this is Lucas Brent from Brent and Associates. Gina Tran gave me your number. She thought you might need some legal advice regarding family trust matters. I'd be happy to discuss your situation at your convenience." A lawyer. Gina had referred me to a lawyer without me even asking. Either she thought my situation was more serious than I'd realized, or she knew something I didn't. I called Lucas back and scheduled a meeting for the next day. Then I opened my laptop and began researching family trust law, property rights, and financial fraud. If Chase and Monica thought they could continue their pattern of disrespect and financial manipulation, they were about to learn otherwise. As I worked, I could hear Monica moving around the kitchen, preparing what was undoubtedly going to be an elaborate peace offering disguised as dinner. But some things couldn't be fixed with a good meal and forced conversation. Some things required a different kind of solution entirely. My phone buzzed with another message from Art. "Linda says Monica called again. She's worried you're getting ideas about the family finances. Thought you should know." Getting ideas. As if wanting to understand how my own money was being spent was somehow suspicious. I saved my research and opened a new document, titling it Timeline of Financial Irregularities. If Monica was worried about me getting ideas, she was right to be worried, because I was getting a lot of ideas, and none of them were going to make her happy. I arrived at Priya's restaurant during the quiet afternoon hours, when the lunch crowd had dispersed and the dinner prep was just beginning. She met me at the entrance, professional but warm, and led me to her office behind the main dining room. "I'm glad you decided to follow up," she said, closing the door behind us. "What happened at your dinner has been bothering me. In 15 years of restaurant management, I've seen a lot of family drama, but that was different." "Different how?" "It felt planned, rehearsed." She pulled a USB drive from her desk drawer. "The security footage is on here. But before you watch it, I think you should know what I observed before the incident." Priya opened her laptop and pulled up the restaurant's floor plan. "Your family was seated at table 12, here in the main dining room. I was doing my usual rounds, checking on guests, when I noticed your wife and stepson having what looked like an intense conversation. They were whispering, pointing at chairs, and at one point, your stepson actually stood up and gestured toward the seat you'd been occupying. They were planning it. It certainly looked that way. When you got up to use the restroom later, your stepson made a comment to the table. He said, 'Finally, some peace and quiet. Maybe now we can have a real family dinner.' But the way he said it, with that satisfied smile, it wasn't spontaneous. It felt like a performance." She handed me the USB drive. "The footage is clear. You can see the whole sequence. The whispered conversation, the deliberate positioning, the push itself, and the family's reaction. Or lack of reaction." "Thank you," I said, pocketing the drive. "This means more than you know. There's something else. Your stepson approached one of our servers after you left the table. He told her that you were just the stepdad and that the family was finally putting you in your place. Our staff found it so inappropriate that they reported it to me. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Chase hadn't just humiliated me in the moment. He'd made sure to explain to strangers that my humiliation was intentional and deserved." "Would your staff be willing to provide statements about what they heard?" "Absolutely. I've already asked them to write down exactly what was said, with timestamps. We take harassment of our guests very seriously. even when it comes from other family members. I left the restaurant feeling like I had my first real piece of solid evidence. The drive home took me past Chase's luxury condominium, and I noticed his expensive sports car in the parking garage, the same car Art had mentioned Monica helping him buy. At home, I found Monica in her home office, surrounded by financial documents and her laptop. She quickly minimized her screen when I entered, but not before I caught a glimpse of what looked like bank transfer forms. "How was your afternoon?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "Productive. I had some errands to run." "What kind of errands?" The question felt like an interrogation. In 17 years of marriage, Monica had never shown much interest in my daily activities. Now she was tracking my movements like a suspicious detective. "Just some personal business. Nothing exciting." "Frank, we need to talk about this obsession you've developed with Chase. It's not healthy." "Obsession?" "You're analyzing every interaction, looking for hidden meanings that aren't there. Chase was just having fun at dinner. Family teasing. You're turning it into some kind of conspiracy." I sat down across from her desk, noting how she positioned herself to block my view of her computer screen. "Monica, how much money have you given Chase in the past year?" "That's none of your business." "We're married. Our finances are joint. That makes it my business. Chase is my son. If he needs help, I'm going to help him. That's what mothers do." "How much?" "I don't keep track of every little—" "How much?" Monica's jaw tightened. "Maybe $10,000, spread out over the whole year. It's not like I gave him a lump sum." I knew she was lying. Art's information suggested the number was much higher, and her defensive body language confirmed it. But I didn't push, not yet. "What does Chase need $10,000 for?" "Living expenses, car payments, business investments. He's trying to build a career, Frank. Not everyone gets to retire early with a full pension." The dig was intentional and sharp. Monica knew I'd worked for 30 years to earn my retirement, but she made it sound like I'd somehow cheated the system. "What business investments?" "He's starting a consulting firm. Engineering consulting, actually. He's been using your reputation and connections to build credibility." The admission hung in the air like a confession. Monica realized what she'd said a moment too late, her eyes widening as she tried to backtrack. "I mean, he mentions that his stepfather is a respected engineer. There's nothing wrong with that." "Has he been telling people he works at my old firm?" "Of course not. That would be fraud." Monica's silence was answer enough. My phone rang, interrupting the tense moment. Lucas Brent's name appeared on the screen. "I need to take this," I said, stepping into the hallway. "Mr. Rivers, I've had a chance to review some preliminary information about your family trust situation. Could you come in tomorrow morning? There are some things we need to discuss urgently." "What kind of things?" "The kind that are better discussed in person." "Can you be here at 9? "I'll be there." When I returned to Monica's office, she was on her phone, speaking in low, urgent tones. She ended the call quickly when she saw me. "Who was that?" I asked. "Chase. I was just checking on him." "Checking on him or warning him?" "Warning him about what?" "That I'm asking questions about his business practices." Monica stood up abruptly, closing her laptop with more force than necessary. "Frank, you're scaring me. This paranoid behavior isn't like you. Maybe you should talk to someone, a therapist or—" "I'm not paranoid, Monica. I'm finally paying attention." "To what?" "To the fact that my own family treats me like an outsider. To the fact that my wife has been secretly funding our adult son's lifestyle without discussing it with me. To the fact that he's apparently been using my professional reputation to commit fraud." "You don't know that. Then help me find out the truth. Show me the bank statements, explain the transfers, tell me exactly what Chase has been saying about his employment status." Monica gathered her papers and headed for the door. "I don't have to prove anything to you, Frank. Chase is my son, and I'll support him however I see fit. If you don't like it, you can leave." The ultimatum was delivered with cold precision. After 17 years of marriage, Monica was making it clear that I ranked below her adult son in the family hierarchy. If I wanted to stay, I had to accept my subordinate position. "Maybe I will," I said quietly. Monica stopped in the doorway, her back still turned to me. "What did you say?" "Maybe I will leave. Maybe it's time I stopped pretending this is a real marriage." She turned around slowly, her face pale. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" For the first time since Christmas dinner, Monica looked genuinely shaken. The confident, controlling woman who'd been managing my emotions and reactions for years suddenly seemed uncertain. "Frank, you're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Let's just forget about all of this and move on. Chase will apologize if that's what you need." "I don't want an apology. I want the truth." "What truth?" "All of it. The money, the lies, the systematic disrespect. I want to know how long you and Chase have been planning to push me out of this family." "Nobody's pushing you out. You're being ridiculous." "Then prove it. Show me the bank records. Let me see exactly where our money has been going." Monica's expression hardened again. "No, my relationship with my son is private. You have no right to interfere with that. And you have no right to use our joint assets to fund his lifestyle without my knowledge." "It's my money too." "Then let's divide it. Legally. Permanently." The word divorce hung unspoken between us, but its presence filled the room like smoke. Monica's confident mask finally cracked, revealing something that looked almost like fear. "You wouldn't." "Try me." I left her standing in the hallway and went to my study, where I plugged in Priya's USB drive and watched the security footage for the first time. The video was exactly as damning as she'd described. The whispered planning session, the deliberate positioning, the calculated humiliation, Chase's satisfied smile as I walked away. But the most revealing moment came at the end, when Chase leaned over to speak to the server. The camera angle was perfect to capture his lips moving as he delivered his "just the stepdad" comment. A professional lip reader could probably provide an exact transcript. I saved copies of the video to multiple locations and added it to my growing evidence file. Then I opened my laptop and began researching divorce attorneys who specialized in complex financial cases. If Monica wanted to choose Chase over our marriage, that was her right. But she was going to discover that pushing me out of the family wouldn't be as easy as pushing me out of a chair. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. And after 30 years of building structures designed to last forever, I knew the difference between a foundation worth saving and one that was already too damaged to repair. Monica and Chase had made their choice. Now it was time to make mine. Lucas Brent's law office occupied the top floor of a downtown building with views of the river. The attorney himself was younger than I'd expected, probably in his mid-30s, but his reputation for handling complex family trust cases was excellent according to my research. "Mr. Rivers, thank you for coming in," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "I've spent some time reviewing the basic information Gina provided, and I have to say, your situation is more complicated than it initially appeared." "Complicated how?" Lucas opened a thick folder and pulled out several documents. "Let's start with your family trust. Are you familiar with the current terms and beneficiaries?" "Somewhat. Monica and I established it about 10 years ago for estate planning purposes. The house, investments, retirement accounts, everything flows through the trust." "When was the last time you reviewed the actual trust documents?" I thought about it. "Probably 5 years ago, maybe longer. Monica handles most of the administrative details." Lucas nodded grimly. "That's what I was afraid of. Mr. Rivers, according to the county records, there have been 3 amendments to your trust in the past 18 months, all bearing your signature." "That's impossible. I haven't signed any amendments." "That's what concerns me." He slid a document across the desk. "This is the most recent amendment, filed just 6 weeks ago. It adds Chase Morgan as a primary beneficiary and grants him power of attorney over trust assets in the event of your incapacitation. I stared at the signature on the document. It looked like mine, close enough to fool a casual observer, but I knew I'd never signed it. This is forged. I believe you, but proving it will require a formal handwriting analysis, and in the meantime, this document gives Chase significant legal authority over your assets. What kind of authority? He can access trust accounts, make investment decisions, even initiate property transfers. Essentially, he has the power to liquidate everything you've worked for, as long as he can demonstrate that you're unable to manage your own affairs. The implications hit me like a physical blow. They're planning to have me declared incompetent. It's a possibility. The pattern fits. Isolate the victim, establish a narrative of mental instability, then use legal mechanisms to assume control of assets. I thought about Monica's recent comments about my paranoid behavior and suggestions that I needed therapy. The groundwork was already being laid. What can we do? Here is a shortened version of the new section, condensed to about 800 words, while keeping the core revelations, tension, and confrontation. In Lucas's office, he outlined the plan. File an emergency motion to freeze trust assets, document every financial irregularity, and prove my mental competence to show the forged trust amendments were made without my knowledge or consent. He slid another document across the desk, a bank signature card for an account opened in my name 3 months ago. I'd never seen it. Regular deposits and transfers had moved about $40,000 to Chase. This is embezzlement, I said. Possibly identity theft and wire fraud. Lucas nodded. They've been planning this for over a year, practicing signatures, opening accounts gradually, timing the trust changes. The betrayal cut deeper than disrespect. Monica and Chase had been preparing to rob me blind. I left with a stack of legal papers and a clear picture of the scheme. My phone buzzed. 3 calls from Monica, 2 from Chase, 1 from Art. I called Art first. "Frank, where are you?" he asked urgently. "Downtown. What's wrong?" "Monica called Linda in a panic, said you'd threatened divorce and were acting erratically. She wanted us to stage an intervention to get you mental health treatment." The plan crystallized. Paint me as paranoid and unstable, then use the forged documents to seize control for my protection. "Art, listen. Monica and Chase have forged my signature on legal documents. They've stolen at least $40,000 from accounts opened in my name. This is financial fraud, not Christmas drama." Silence then. "Jesus, are you sure? I just left my lawyer with proof. They're discrediting me so no one believes me." "What do you need?" "Be a witness. Document everything Monica says to Linda about my mental state. I'll need people to testify I'm thinking clearly." "Done. Linda already thinks her story doesn't sound like you." When I got home, Monica waited in the living room with tea and a rehearsed look of concern. She stood as I entered. "Frank, we need to talk about getting you help." "What kind?" "Professional help. You've been under stress, and your behavior has been concerning." "Concerning to whom?" "To me, to Chase, to the family. This obsession with conspiracies, the paranoid accusations, threats of divorce. It's not like you." I sat across from her, watching the calculation behind her concern. "What conspiracies?" "This idea that Chase and I are stealing or forging documents. That's not rational." "Show me the bank statements for the past 6 months." "What?" "If I'm paranoid, prove it. Show me the statements." Her composure flickered. "I don't have to prove anything. Demanding to see records shows how far this paranoia has gone." "Monica, we're married. Those are joint accounts." "Some are my personal accounts. I have a right to privacy." "Not when you're moving joint assets into them." She stood abruptly. "I'm calling Dr. Peterson. You need evaluation." "Dr. Peterson's our family doctor, not a psychiatrist. What will you tell him?" "That my husband is in crisis. wild accusations, threatening to destroy the family over imaginary grievances. And then, commit me? Declare me incompetent? She hesitated, then the mask slipped, revealing cold calculation. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my family. I thought I was your family. You are. That's why I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to neutralize a threat, the threat of me exposing what you and Chase have done. You're not making sense. I pulled out my phone and opened the video file Priya had provided. Let's watch something together. I think it might help clarify things. Monica's face went pale as the Christmas dinner footage began to play. We watched in silence as Chase and Monica whispered together, planning their strategy. We watched Chase position himself for maximum impact. We watched the calculated humiliation unfold exactly as they'd rehearsed it. This doesn't prove anything, Monica said when the video ended, but her voice lacked conviction. It proves you lied to me. You said Chase was just having spontaneous fun, but this shows you planned the whole thing together. So what? Maybe we wanted to teach you a lesson about respecting family hierarchy. That's not a crime. No, but this is. I pulled out the forged trust documents Lucas had shown me. Recognize these signatures? Monica glanced at the papers and looked away quickly. I don't know what those are. They're trust amendments filed in my name, with my forged signature, giving Chase control over our assets, along with bank accounts I never opened and transfers I never authorized. The silence that followed was deafening. Monica sat frozen, her mind clearly racing as she calculated her options. Frank, you're confused. You signed those documents. You just don't remember because of the stress you've been under. I've never been more clear about anything in my life. You and Chase have been systematically defrauding me, and now you're trying to have me declared mentally incompetent to cover your tracks. That's not... We would never... But you would. You already have. Monica stood up abruptly, her composed facade finally cracking completely. Fine. You want to know the truth? Chase deserves that money more than you do. He's family. Real family. You're just someone I married who happened to have a good pension and a nice house. The brutal honesty was almost refreshing after months of manipulation and gaslighting. So this has all been a lie? Our entire marriage? Not all of it. But Chase comes first. He always has, and he always will. If you can't accept that, then yes, maybe this marriage is over. It's been over for a long time, Monica. I just didn't want to admit it. I gathered the legal documents and headed for the door. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. My lawyer will be in touch about freezing the assets and filing criminal charges. Criminal charges? Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, take your pick. Frank, wait. We can work this out. We can fix this. I turned back to look at her one last time. Some things can't be fixed, Monica. Some foundations are too damaged to support anything real. Where does that leave us? It leaves you and Chase exactly where you wanted to be, together, without me getting in the way. As I drove away from the house I'd called home for 17 years, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: relief. The truth was finally out in the open, ugly and painful as it was. Monica and Chase had wanted to push me out of the family. They'd succeeded. But they were about to discover that pushing someone out and getting away with fraud were two very different things. The game was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Here is a shortened version of the story, condensed to about 200 words, while preserving the key plot, tension, and ending. In my sparse but clean downtown hotel room, I spread out evidence on the small desk. It was close to Lucas's office and far from Monica's suburban damage control. My phone buzzed nonstop. Monica 6 times, Chase twice, family concerned messages. I ignored them all, focused on building an airtight case. Lucas's checklist guided me. Bank statements, credit cards, utilities, insurance, anything showing financial irregularities. The pattern stretched back 2 years. Small transfers at first, then escalating amounts and frequency. Chase was preparing for a big theft. An email from Gina at my old firm was damning. 23 verification calls for Chase's employment over 18 months. HR always said he'd never worked there. He'd used my reputation for loans, credit, and fake consulting gigs. Art called. Monica was telling family I'd had a mental breakdown, paranoid, delusional, dangerous. Some believed her. Others, like Art, Linda, Margaret, and Uncle Bob, didn't. Chase played the worried stepson, regretting the misunderstanding at Christmas dinner. I asked Art to document Monica's calls and recall Chase's lavish lifestyle, the car, condo, clothes that never matched his supposed income. Monica claimed consulting success, but there was no evidence. "Frank, this is criminal," Art said. "Press charges." "I will, once the evidence is solid." I called Priya at the restaurant. The video had helped. Now I needed written statements from her and the staff about what they heard. "Ready by tomorrow," she promised. The next morning, Lucas reviewed my files. "Excellent work. We have enough for criminal charges and civil suits. We planned emergency asset freeze, DA referral, ugly divorce. Monica and Chase will fight dirty, claim you're unstable, try to commit you," Lucas warned. "They can try. Our witnesses will prove otherwise." Lucas filed that afternoon. By morning, their access was cut off. That evening, Chase texted, "Reasonable, conciliatory, wanting to talk." I ignored it. I wrote a detailed account of everything, from the Christmas humiliation to the fraud. They'd underestimated me, the methodical engineer. The courthouse hearing came. Lucas and I arrived early. Monica and Chase entered with their sharp attorney. Monica looked tearful. Chase wore wounded innocence. Judge Harrison, thorough and fair, heard Lucas present forged trust amendments, unauthorized accounts, $40,000 in transfers, and the handwriting expert's forgery conclusion. The defense claimed Monica managed finances with my consent. I was stressed and delusional. They had no original signed documents. Lucas showed witness statements and the restaurant video of Monica and Chase plotting my public humiliation and bragging about it. Judge Harrison watched in silence. Chase's explanation, family teasing, fell flat. Based on the evidence, she froze all joint accounts and trusts, barred Monica and Chase from access, and referred the case to the DA for prosecution. "Financial elder abuse is serious," she said. Monica sobbed. Chase sat stunned. Their attorney muttered about appeals, but shook her head. Outside, Lucas said charges could come within weeks. Divorce would follow. I called Art with the news. We won. Complete freeze. Criminal referral. Back at the hotel, I reflected. Monica and Chase had betrayed 17 years of marriage for money they could have asked for. They'd chosen lies over love. Chase called again. "Frank, this is out of hand. We can pay back. Make it right." "With what? You've lived off fraud for years. Think about Eli." "I am. I won't let him learn lying and stealing are okay." I hung up and turned off my phone. Chase wanted to know his place. Now he knew. Outside the family, outside the money, outside the law. Some bridges once burned leave everyone exactly where they deserve to be.